Hello everyone, it's time again for the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. It seems we're wrapping up on Case 4 of Resolve, Twisted Karma in this last bow. Are we finally gonna acquit Barak and Zeke's of murder? Find out. I still can't quite believe what just happened. No. I inquired with the bailiff after the court session was adjourned. And it seems Mr. Vigil was taken to hospital to recover. Right. "10 years ago now. Mr. Vigil attempted to commit suicide by jumping out the window of the prison governor's office. But ever since then, he's completely blocked the memory of those events from his mind. Nobody knew his secret. Not his family, not even the man himself, but I forced it out into the open. Was it wrong of me to do that? Did I overstep the mark, I wonder? You know. Oh, Iris.
You're miles away. Anyway, I brewed a fresh pot of soothing tea for you.
Oh, thank you.
You and Susie have had an exhausting day so far, haven't you?
Thank you, Iris. How thoughtful of you. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is? When we came out of the courtroom back into the defendant's antechamber, he disappeared.
Oh, no, I don't know. He just suddenly sprang to his feet and left. All he said was, "I must leave."
I wonder if he's pursuing the mystery of Inspector Gregson's death.
Well, you know what Hurley's always saying, don't you? There are mysteries in this world that should perhaps never be solved. But the construction of a solution comes only at the expense of the destruction of something else. You know it's very well that when you open someone else's old wounds, you often open your own too. But he just can't take his own advice and leave it all alone. Solving mysteries is too important to him.
That's so true.
That's what I like about Hurley, after all. So then, let's have tea. Then I'll give you a hand.
Oh, do you have time, Iris?
Yes, I finished this month's manuscript at last. We've barely a day to spare before the deadline. Oh, so looking forward to it. A brand new story to read in the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You know, I always hide Hurley's violin in the days before I have a deadline.
You do?
I'm sure that's very wise, Iris. How sensible of you. Now then, my dear fellows, let's make a plan of action before we continue our investigation. So, how did it go in court this morning?
Well, we still don't know the truth about what really happened. One thing's increasingly clear. Wolf and Zeeks definitely didn't do it.
Oh, goody! Yes, that's right. We managed to uncover several new facts as well. Huh? Really?
And there was another development too.
Yes, it's quite clear now. The Kazuma-sama is not himself. The way he's acting, it's almost as if he's possessed.
I know. I mean, at the end of proceedings earlier. He was like a bloodhound the way he was chasing down Mr. Vigil's forgotten past. Gregson was really murdered the day before his body was discovered. The Lord Ventinx has to be innocent, you see.
What? The day before? Well, that should be easy enough to work out. Just by examining the corpse, surely. Yes, you would expect so, but curiously, no time of death was included in the autopsy report. That is curious.
There's still unanswered questions about Lord Ventinx, though, aren't there?
Do you mean?
I mean, what was he doing there on Fresno Street that day in the first place?
Well, according to the man's testimony, he said he was investigating Inspector Gregson, didn't he?
And it turns out that little room was actually the inspector's secret office.
Ooh, that sounds like it has all the makings of a wonderfully devilish plot.
But then, why was that notice board in there covered in all those particular papers? Papers about cases with a link to the Reaper. I'm starting to get a bad feeling about all this.
Oh dear. This is more like something horribly devilish. We must start by looking into Inspector Gregson's movements of late.
I never imagined I might have to be investigating an inspector's movements.
Well, according to the entry in his diary, he was carrying on an incognito investigation of the Red-Headed League the day before his death. Oh, you mean he was doing the same as Hurley?
Well, Mr. Sholmes was trying to apply, whereas the inspector was supposed to be investigating.
I do wish it had been the other way around.
Anyway, as it turns out, the inspector who went to investigate the Red-Headed League that day wasn't actually Gregson at all. It was Mr. Vigil, in possession of Gregson's identification.
You know what that sounds like to me? Establishing an alibi. Oh my. Yes, you're absolutely right, Iris.
But why would Gregson need an alibi?
It would appear that the inspector had something to do that he wished to keep secret. I don't believe it. I always thought he was just a harmless lover of fish and chips.
Or perhaps they were seasoned with something a little more potent than salt and vinegar.
I think perhaps we should try to move away from food analogies.
Well, anyway, if Lord Ventinx felt the need to investigate Gregson.
Yes, I agree. We must try to find out what he knows. Vigil, you say? Isn't that the name of the lady who came to visit Hurley yesterday? That's right. To ask Mr. Sholmes if he would help her to find her missing husband.
Only Mr. Sholmes completely passed the buck to us. Actually, didn't you say that Mr. Vigil had been taken to hospital? You know which one?
Ah, it's St. Sinner's.
I'm starting to wonder if all the other hospitals in London have closed down.
That's amazing, Bruno! You found the lady's husband already!
Well, I suppose I have. By accident.
And 10 years ago, while Mr. Vigil was the chief warder at the prison, he was responsible for overseeing the professor's incarceration. No.
So when the convict escaped, he was held responsible and immediately dismissed.
Sometimes you really don't want to grow up.
There's more. For 10 years after that, while he was ostensibly working as a peddler, he also had another secret job. He was paid by Gregson to be a stand-in, to impersonate the inspector.
to impersonate Grexy. But why?
I have absolutely no idea.
Oh, Ginny was right. I'm starting to think all adults are up to no good now. Including you, Bruno.
I haven't paid anyone to impersonate me.
I mean, he has ties to Professor and to Inspector Rexon, though. I do think you have to pay a visit to Mr. Vigil, don't you? Well, I think it's clear what we need to do, isn't it? Let's investigate, my dear fellows. Oh, Iris. You were more enthusiastic than usual today. If anyone has anything to hide, my special Wilson shooting iron will soon set them straight.
That water pistol?
It's stuff full of a piping hot, extra special blendifying. I'm not quite sure it'll be very effective.
Well, it feels a little strange that Mrs. Sholmes is nowhere to be seen, but still. Let's go and see what we can find out.
Yes. Orphan 6 is reading. Look. He doesn't seem like he wants visitors, does he?
He must have noticed that we're here, surely. I see that broody face of his. What do you Nipponese want? There's no way to greet the lawyer who's trying his hardest to prove your innocence, is it? Perhaps not. Hmm? I apologize. So what can I do for you, Mr. Naruhodo?
Orphan 6, speaking earnestly. Oh, the fog will lift over London for the first time in months tomorrow.
I must say, I was impressed. Oh, well, thank you. Not by you, by your fellow Nipponese, your prosecutor friend. Oh, I see. Yes. It's sardonic, don't you think? For a man such as me, so loathing of the Nipponese, you're entirely at the mercy of the two of you. I suppose. It's retribution for having played the part of the Reaper all these years. You once told me that you gladly allowed people to believe you were the Reaper, because it helped reduce the amount of serious crime that took place in London. But keeping quiet and playing the part benefits the cause, a cause I myself am committed to pursuing. Then why would I choose to say anything? But the henchman of a criminal killed by the Reaper attacked you only the other day. And that was just the most recent of many attempts on your life, wasn't it? Someone clearly profiting from your silence about all this. Someone is using you. Believe me, ever since the Reaper first appeared, I've been doing my utmost to expose him. Or rather, expose the organization.
It's a whole organization?
It's inconceivable that also its accidents were orchestrated by one man. No, if Reaper always appears to have very accurate information about the accused in each case. Which can only be that somebody at Scotland Yard is involved.
Someone at... You can't mean...
It's taken me many years, but I've finally identified the central figure in this Reaper organization. Tobias Gregson.
No!
So, the reason you're investigating Inspector Gregson is because you intended to expose him as the Reaper? As I said, the Reaper of the Bailey is no single person. It's a highly secret organization with close ties to Scotland Yard. But there's no doubt that Gregson was a key member of that organization.
I don't believe it. Are you saying that Grexy? That he was behind all those awful criminals meeting their...
Gregson didn't do the dirty work himself.
Oh.
He was a tactician. His job was to covertly investigate the marks and plot their assassinations. In order to do that without arousing suspicion, he regularly needed a firm alibi. Which is where Mr. Vigil came in, supposing that's the inspector. Vigil knows nothing of the Reaper, but the room he rents on Fresno Street was almost certainly the headquarters of the operation. Gregson would have met the assassin there for briefings. So we don't actually know who carried out the killings, then. Actually, I do have a name. What?
Well, if you can name the man, you have the true identity of the Reaper already then.
Or if I can name the woman.
Oh.
She's a young woman by the name of Assassin. Wait, what? Miss Assassin. The true name of a terrifying killer I know only too well. She came to Japan posing as a visiting student and murdered Dr. John H. Wilson. Then, just when it seemed that diplomatic protection would help her escape Japan and conviction, the mysterious woman was herself murdered in a small summer beach hut. And that woman was actually the Reaper of the Bailey?
Mr. Naruhodo, this perhaps isn't the place to discuss...
No, of course not.
Assassin. I shall let Father know at once.
Yes, I agree. We're just gonna leave that there, huh? Kazuma, isn't it? Kazuma Asogi. You say he's a friend of yours. My best friend. He's the whole reason I got to come to Britain. It was all on his merits. I have nothing but respect for him. Yes, I understand that only the very best students are selected for such opportunities. And I had a fine demonstration of how sharp he is in the proceedings earlier today. He missed nothing. In fact, his flawless performance very much reminded me of his father. It's true that the aristocracy at the time was the root of numerous grave societal problems. They were abusing their power, playing with the common man as pawns in politics, in economics, in war. In many ways, Asogi was carving out a canker from society that we British couldn't deal with ourselves. I see. That's precisely why it makes no sense. Van Zieks was a noble and upstanding man. He wasn't corrupt. Why did that damn Nipponese have to go and take my brother's life? In spite of having once saved mine. He saved your life? It was 10 years ago, on a foggy night. What was to be the professor's final strike had sent a wave of panic through the capital. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. Of course, at that point, I had no idea of the true nature of the man at my side. All of a sudden, don't make a peep, you're coming with us! You're surrounded. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scars. It was not only from noble heritage, he was a brilliant prosecutor as well. The scum of London hated the sight of him, and he had no sympathy for his younger brother either. I've been targeted several times before already. Yeah, this Van Ziek's alright, we got him! I could hear them murmuring amongst themselves. I knew they were after me. But just when I thought my time had come. If I let them kill you, Link will never forgive me. It was Asogi's voice. Just a whisper in my ear. After that, I don't remember exactly what happened. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay in the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He shielded me. Two days later, they arrested him. On suspicion of being London's most notorious mass murderer ever. The Professor.
How awful for you.
All at once, I lost a brother I revered, and a foreign friend I held in such high regard. I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zieks. That's the end of my miserable tale. I never thought I'd recount it to anyone. Well, thank you for confiding in me.
The Professor, the Reaper, and Inspector Gregson. I wonder just how intimately related they all are.
I still can't quite believe that Gregson was essentially the Reaper.
Mr. Naruhodo, let's go and inform my father. I'm sure our government will want to hear about this new information. Oh, that means I get to meet your daddy, Susie! Hooray!
Yeah, it's alright. You go back to your reading then.
I thought it yesterday and I think it again today. So he's just so princely.
It's a wild guess, but I have a feeling you'll think the same tomorrow too.
My tea has a finer fragrance than whatever they're serving in the tea room here, though, wouldn't you say?
Look at who we have here. This is an unexpected pleasure.
Father! Oh, is this your daddy, Susie? How lovely!
What a charming young lady. And you are? Huh, really? So you're the author of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, are you?
That's me. Iris Wilson, at your service, sir. Susie's been such a wonderful friend to me over the last year, you know.
Oh, Miss Wilson. I must say I read your work regularly and with much interest.
Iris actually lives with Mr. Holmes, you know, Father.
Is that so? Well, perhaps that goes some way to explaining that bright look in your eyes. Now then, young Naruhodo, it was a pleasure seeing you in action earlier. As an invitee of the symposium, I was allowed to observe from the gallery. After twisted some arms. And I must say, it's a truly exemplary performance. Oh, well, thank you very much. No, please don't misunderstand. It was you who impressed me. Really? You didn't miss a step against Asogi, and we all know how capable he is. Really, to have matured into such a fine defense lawyer in less than a year is quite extraordinary. It's very kind of you to say so. Someone praise Ryunosuke more, he needs it. What I saw in court today confirmed what I've been hoping for. The favor I mentioned yesterday, Naruhodo. I trust you haven't forgotten. Oh, no, you did mention something, didn't you?
But first, we have something to report, Father.
Of course. Shall we take tea while we discuss matters further? We'll just talk about this out in the lobby, okay?
Father, do you know about the so-called Reaper of the Bailey?
I've heard rumors. Some members of the judiciary explained it all to me yesterday. Of course. When I was a visiting student here in London, the Reaper was yet to emerge. Lord Van Deeks, who was in the dock today. That was Barak, the younger brother of Clint Van Deeks, I believe.
That's right. And he's known throughout London as the Reaper, as you've heard. But the truth is, it wasn't him behind all those mysterious deaths. It was somebody else.
I see. So what you're saying is, there's been a professional killer at work here? Exactly. Someone by the name of Assassin, in fact. Beg your pardon? Did you say Assassin? You mean the disobedient woman who was responsible for killing my great friend?
Oh no! A friend of yours was killed?
Professor Mikosova, I think perhaps we shouldn't discuss this right now. And we're gonna talk about it anyway.
I've just remembered something. Biscuits. This hotel has the most delicious looking biscuits.
That was rather out of the blue.
I think I'll go and see if I can purchase some. I wonder, would you like to come too, Iris? Oh yes. You just tried to leave me behind.
So that young girl is called Iris Wilson, is she? Yes, that's right. And she's the author of all those adventure stories starring the great Detective Sholmes. But the name of the credited author isn't Iris, is it? It's Dr. John H. Wilson. Yes, I know. That's the name of her father, you see. Her father? Dr. John H. Wilson. I was deeply indebted to the man for all the kindness he showed me during my time in London. That's why I was keen to reciprocate and invite him to the Imperial Yume University 4 years ago. But he was murdered last year by Giselle Brett. Iris knows nothing about that case, but it seems very likely that the victim, Dr. Wilson, was her father. Well, I can't say that we ever spoke about his family, so I don't know if he had a daughter or not. But I think I can say with some certainty that he was never the great detective's partner. So, it could have been another Dr. Wilson, you think? Well, John and Wilson are both common names after all. Still, it's probably best not to mention this to the young lady until we can be sure. That's what we thought, yes.
We're back! With cinnamon biscuits.
Ooh, they smell delicious, Iris.
I think cinnamon would go very well with the tea they serve here. Don't you, Susie? Yes. I'm sure you're right, Iris.
I haven't seen Judge Jujoku for a while, have you? No, now that you mention it, I haven't seen him since this morning either. I suppose since the symposium's opening was postponed, he'll have gone to explore at the Great Exhibition.
That reminds me of something you mentioned yesterday. About Judge Jujoku having once been in the dock himself.
Ah yes, it was all tied up with that accursed trial. Seishiro was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took to the stand to testify. But he got a little carried away and actually managed to break the witness stand.
Oh my.
He also said some contentious words about the British Empire, for which he was charged. Oh dear. Although it's worryingly easy to imagine him doing that. Well, it was all alright in the end. He was acquitted, and we returned home to Japan together.
Thank goodness.
Ah yes, talking of Seishiro. I have a copy of the photograph we all took together here yesterday. Please.
Oh, what a lovely picture.
It certainly seems to shout, if right in Britain. What's this gonna be evidence for? None of us had any idea what was coming when we took that, did we?
No. No, that's so true.
Where did you get this pen? So, you mentioned a favor that you'd like to ask me. Well, this fateful trial that you're fighting. One way or another, it will be over before long. And when it is, I'd like you to accompany me back to Japan. You want me to do...
What? Oh, Father? What's the meaning of this?
Now, Sasato, you should understand. You've seen how our course work firsthand. Japan's judicial system is in its infancy, especially when it comes to defense.
Oh, you mean...
The Supreme Court of Judiciary is in desperate need of a good defense lawyer. As soon as possible. Really, quite urgently, in fact. But I've not even been in London a year yet. I read all Susato's reports. I'm well aware of your extraordinary talents. And having seen you in action with my own eyes earlier today, there's no question. You, Naruhodo, are precisely the man our country needs.
So, you'd be leaving then, Runo? But then, what am I supposed to do, Father?
You came here to serve as Asogi's judicial assistant. Our government is still in the process of deciding how best to deal with this situation. You've always chosen your own path, Susato. And I trust your judgment. In this matter also.
Father.
Please, prepare for me. Don't look so downcast. It's merely a suggestion, you understand. I hope, if I'm honest, but I won't force you. All I ask is that you consider it, and come to a decision by the time this trial concludes. Yes, alright.
You won't leave, will you, Runo?
Well, if you'll excuse me now. I need to telegram government ministers and the Japanese police with this information about Asashin.
Of course, Father. Thank you.
I look forward to next month's installment, Miss Wilson.
Oh, good. At least do come to Baker Street sometime, won't you? We'd love to entertain you.
I will be delighted. Best of luck for tomorrow, Naruhodo. And give my suggestion your full consideration, won't you? Yes, I will.
You know, Kazuma-sama has always meant a great deal to my father. I'm sure he'd love the chance to meet with him and talk to him about all this.
Yes, no doubt. Sashin. Of course, that's so obvious. I could have neglected to consider the possibility before now. Ah, Mr. Sholmes.
Really? Where have you been?
Why, I joined you all for tea, of course. What an extraordinary question.
I didn't notice you at all.
No matter, no matter. Anyway, to more pressing concerns. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? I must dispatch a telegram to your country at once. This is a matter of much urgency. To Japan, you mean? Tell me, to whom can I entrust the task? Quickly now, who?
Well, my father has just now left to send a telegram to the Imperial Police Bureau of Japan himself.
I see. Well, you look reliable enough for a bearded fellow.
I don't think what father sports could be considered a beard, Mr. Sholmes.
I mean, he's got a mustache, but... yeah. There's not a moment to lose. Kindly ask your trusty unshaven father to see this ascent.
I will, but what is it?
No questions at this time, if you please, Mrs. Otto. All I can do is pray that for once, my deduction is awry. Doesn't that imply that your deductions are normally correct, Mr. Sholmes? Which isn't exactly... Now then. You'd be surprised to learn that I'm a very busy man. I certainly have no time to hide behind studies and eavesdrop on other people's conversations. I'll leave the sending of this in your hands, then, my dear fellows. Wait a minute, Mr. Sholmes.
He just sort of ran off, didn't he? At quite a pace.
And left the unpaid bill for his tea behind, too.
I must catch up with the father at the telegraph office at once. And I'll run and call us a cab. Straight away.
How much do they charge for tea in this hotel? Okay, now we can see Mr. Vigil.
This is the ward Mr. Vigil was brought, apparently.
Oh, lawyer. Hello again.
Are you feeling better now, Mr. Vigil?
Yes, thank you. Somewhat better. I'm so sorry to have caused you to... I mean, it was because of me. If I hadn't exposed your secret and forced you to remember things you obviously tried to forget. The prosecutor was here until a few moments ago too. You just missed him. Oh. He said much the same as you. He is very apologetic. But the truth is, I brought all this upon myself. Please, don't think like that. Keeping it from Evie, my wife, all these years, I've carried such a sense of guilt. But that's not the worst of it. Over time, I obviously came to deceive myself as well.
You mean about your dismissal?
Looking back now, I'm beginning to think that perhaps Inspector Gregson didn't stumble across me by accident at all. I mean, he compensated me so generously for acting as his stand-in. He is clearly concerned for my well-being and doing what he could to help. I'm sure this is just a search for 10 years of lies and deception, but... It wasn't me that helped the professor escape 10 years ago. It wasn't me. I swear it. I swear it's true.
Oh, Mr. Vigil.
I'm sure you'd rather not dredge up even more for me past it this time, but... If possible, could you tell us exactly what really happened? I want to. I need to get all this off my chest. I just want someone to tell me what I should have done. Tell me all about it, buddy. Inspector Gregson was obviously engaged in a special operation of some sort. He was investigating something that even Scotland Yard couldn't know about. It was when he had to carry out those investigations that I would take his identification and impersonate him. pretended to be the inspector and carried out his investigations on his behalf. Oh no, never! A common street peddler couldn't possibly carry out a proper police investigation. All I would do is go to the specified location and make a little hoo-ha. Just something to leave an impression, so everyone there would think a detective called Gregson was here.
So, that's what you were doing on the day prior to the incident?
Yes. He asked me to make an appearance at the park on Lime Street for the Red-Headed League event. So, as usual, I flashed the inspector's identification around and was very vocal about my presence.
But then you were taken prisoner by those red-headed fraudsters.
Yes. So, you would always make a point of showing Gregson's identification and generally being loud? That's what the inspector asked me to do, yes?
Well, that's one way of becoming a legendary detective, I suppose. Not a good one, though.
And as you know, I suffered this bruising around my neck at their hands. But the following date, they kept their word and released me. Without returning the inspector's identification to you, however. We had arranged to meet in the Fresno Street room at 5 that day so I could report back to the inspector. About the agreed time, that's when I heard the gunshot. It was at midnight on the 17th of June 10 years ago. That was the time scheduled for the execution. But the professor's execution never actually took place, did it?
Or rather, the execution itself must have been used to effect the plan of escape. I hardly dare to imagine what a chilling plan it was.
Barclay was renowned for being the high-security prison in the country. Everything that went in or out of the place was searched multiple times. But there was one notable exception. Or rather, one notable loophole, something that was never questioned. I have a feeling I know what that loophole was now. The coffins into which the bodies of the executed convicts were placed, correct? Yes. Once the coroner had confirmed the death of a condemned convict, the body was taken in its coffin for immediate burial in Lowgate Cemetery just behind the prison. The chief warder first had to sign the necessary papers. And after that, no member of staff was permitted to touch the coffin containing the body again. When executions took place, only the executioner and the coroner were permitted inside the chamber. I would wait in the adjacent room for word that the condemned convict was dead. On that occasion, once I had that confirmation, I went to the mortuary to find a lone coffin as usual. The procedure was that I would sign the paperwork having checked the coffin, then nail it shut. But for some reason that day, the coffin was already nailed shut. Oh. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed that my deputy must have checked the coffin and nailed it shut before I arrived. So, Yumi, the coffin contained... Yes. I can only imagine that Asogi, having escaped his execution somehow, was alive inside that coffin. The coffin was then taken out through the main gates and deposited in Lowgate Cemetery.
Assuming there wouldn't have been enough air inside to breathe for long.
So in the early hours following the burial, somebody dug up the coffin again to set Gretchen free.
But in the end, he was fatally shot in the graveyard anyway. What on earth really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night, I wonder?
I'm afraid I really don't know. All I can say with certainty are two things. Asogi couldn't possibly have escaped that way without help from somebody working in the prison. And that somebody was not me. Obviously, you knew the man then. The professor, I mean. Genshin Asogi? Yes, I remember him well, in fact. Would you mind telling us what you know? Well, having been condemned to death as he was, any contact I had with the man was short, obviously. After that trial, which was carried out behind closed doors, attended only by elite members of the judiciary, they called for his execution to be carried out at the earliest possible opportunity. The outcome of the trial was set from the beginning, wasn't it?
It was a time of delicate diplomacy when Britain and Japan were in the process of signing an important treaty. The man of this potentially destabilizing case had to be dealt with swiftly and discreetly.
The men had less than a week in total. As I was chief warder, I oversaw his short stay in the cells until his final hour. I remember being struck deeply by his noble character and incredible resilience. And what do you mean exactly? He was a killer of many men, but he was always quiet and polite. He was a gentleman, and a man of intellect. In fact, I couldn't bring myself to believe what he'd done, so I asked him one day. Those 5 members of the aristocracy whose lives were taken, were you really responsible? I'm guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes. That sounds very indirect. The following day, the closed trial took place, and the verdict was no surprise. Guilty. That night, when he was brought back to his cell, I saw something. Something unusual. Something unusual? What? The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. As I said, it was on the night following his trial, after he'd been found guilty. I was doing the rounds of the cells, and when I looked into Asogi's, I noticed that he seemed to have a sheet of paper in his hand. As soon as he noticed me, he hurriedly shoved it behind his back.
But why did you find that so unusual? Is it normal for a man to pen a will when he knows his death is nigh?
Yes, that's true. But there were special conditions to Asogi's incarceration, you see. What sort of conditions? Well, you know he was held in a cell designed for condemned inmates. He was allowed to keep his personal effects with him, with one exception. Really? He was allowed his things? Of course, he'd been convicted of killing 5 members of the aristocracy. But at the same time, he was a guest in our country from the Empire of Japan. The powers that be were determined that his final days shouldn't be needlessly uncomfortable.
And what was the exception you mentioned to the personal effects he was allowed?
That's the point. He wasn't permitted to have writing materials. Specifically, no pens or paper.
So, he was prevented from leaving any written record of what had happened to him?
Yes, that was the long and short of it. I have no idea where he obtained that paper. Any writing materials would have been confiscated from him upon his incarceration. As I said, he hid the paper behind his back, and then he pleaded with me. What did you just hide behind your back? Please, please, turn a blind eye. This is my lifeline. But you know it's against the rules. You're the only person who's seen. If you just agree to keep quiet. Alright then, but what's on that paper? The last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. So I decided to pretend I'd seen nothing, and I let him keep his will. But then later, he just seemed to vanish without trace. What? What do you mean it vanished?
It would seem that isn't the end of the story of this mysterious will.
I was the only person who saw Sogi's will, but somehow it disappeared. It was after Asogi's execution.
Which was actually an elaborate jailbreak.
The wars gathered up Asogi's possessions that were in his cell. They're all to be sent back to his family home in Japan, you see.
The poor Kazuma-sama.
And you're saying that it wasn't anywhere to be found among his personal effects? Well, I mean. That's right. Though I didn't search through them myself. But Governor Kaden was livid. He was screaming. It cannot disappear completely.
That doesn't quite make sense though, does it?
In what way?
Well, we understood that only Mr. Vigil was aware of the will's existence. In which case, how did the prison governor know to look for it?
Oh, yes, you're right. I really don't know how he knew. But it certainly seemed as though he knew of the will's existence from the outset. Only he didn't refer to it as a will. What he said was... the Asogi papers. The Asogi papers? I really can't tell you anything of the subsequent events. Because, well, of what happened. I've forgotten all this until today. I don't suppose it's relevant to the case, though. Everything's relevant. Well, anyway, thank you very much for sharing it with us, Mr. Vigil. We're very grateful. I'm afraid there's really little more I can tell you. My wife Evie will be here shortly, so I do hope I don't appear rude, but... No, not at all. Thank you again.
Oh, what would become of you now?
Well, impersonating a police officer is a criminal offense, of course. Even if it's consensual. I imagine that once I'm fully recovered, I shall be arrested. I'm so sorry. Don't be, please. This is all my own doing. I always knew that this day would come. Well, I wish you well. Goodbye, Mr. Vigil. Ah! Before you go, there's just one thing. Oh, yes? What is it? The Asogi papers. I'd be very grateful if you make no mention of the things I told you about them. Presumably for some good reason. It's my understanding that their very existence is a closely guarded secret. It did become known that I remembered. Well, it could be rather troublesome, I think. I understand. If there's anyone who might know more about a document that Cosmo's father left behind,
It'll be Mr. Vigil's governor. Then we know precisely where we must go. Back to Barclay Prison.
on the dumps, isn't he? He is such a master of disguise. You should have just taken up theater. Alright, that's okay. Okay. Need to hydrate. Oh, again, are you? Yes. Hello. I've heard all about your investigations. I read the report just now. You found them, eh? Vigil. Yes, luckily. Well, anywho. The lottery doesn't work yet anymore. The case is not to do with Berkeley. I wouldn't like you to get the wrong idea about that. Of course, yes. Mr. Vigil stopped working here 10 years ago now, so...
Yes, we've seen his dismissal notice, haven't we? He was given the chop.
I can very well. So, how about a wee handcuff this year?
Oh, they really are like little handcuffs. And as hard as irons, too.
So, what sport are you doing here today? I just want more biscuits. Well, there's something else we'd like to ask you about, actually. Is that so? We believe there might have been a document that disappeared from Genshin Asogi's cell. I think it's been called the Asogi Papers or something. Didn't we just have a conversation about not mentioning it? Did I not say? It's as if it's not to do with things that might have happened at Berkeley. It's the past in the past, laddie. Let's not fool about Humboldt with relevant details. Can you tell us about them whether you like it or not, sir? The murderous botched execution, and the whole miserable escape. Their Berkeley's dog is outright a shocking embarrassment. Because the convict had a collaborator on the prison staff, you mean? Aye, for shame. The coroner who confirmed the death of the man after his execution, Courtney Scythe, and my chief warder at the time, Vigil, was in charge of the whole affair.
And Mr. Vigil says he didn't know anything about it.
Rescue wouldn't say otherwise, eh? More handcuffs?
Oh, how can I say no? You can never have too much iron in your diet. And Mr. Vigil was handed his dismissal notice as a result of what had happened. He was still despairing. He jumped out of your office window, didn't he?
I'm not sure that's grammatically correct. I didn't like to say, but that's just Vigil trying to get out of it. Do you not think he wouldn't have jumped from the shock of his crimes being exposed, eh? I do. Of course, I can assume all responsibility myself. I shouldn't have let them deceive me. Actually, there's barely anybody that kens what went on at the time now. If Gregson hadn't been murdered, then Dr. Saif wouldn't have any visitors.
Well, we're not going home empty-handed.
And I wouldn't have dreamed of sending you packing with no, Tina. Yeah, take a handcuff or two.
Oh, well, it would be rude to say no. Wouldn't want to become anemic.
I suppose if there's anyone who might still keen about what happened back then, it'd be that last from the forensic division. Maria Gore. Maria Gore? Aye, so I stole her. She didn't have no more, just the one. But the wheat bands followed in Nem's footsteps. You didn't never see her with an entire scalpel in her hand. Ah.
Mama, what is this?
Huh. So, she's Dr. Saif's daughter, but her surname is Gory? Right, there's some family history, I'm sure, but I didn't get into the ins of it. We grew up watching young men working with the bodies of the folk who died in strange circumstances. I decided to do the same with her own life. I can't understand it myself.
Perhaps she was driven by a deep respect for her mother.
Perhaps. Anywho, she's in charge of Gregson's autopsy, I believe. Someone told me once that the wee lassie always loved to mem stories about cutting up bodies. There's even a rumor that she used to listen to the funeral march as a lullaby.
Well then, perhaps. Her mother might have told her about the autopsy from the case 10 years ago.
I say there's a fighting chance at least. After all, that was a life-changing case for all of us. Well, thank you very much. I'm not happy about any part of this. It took years for Londoners to finally forget the whole professor business. Can you not give up on this, laddie? Stop asking pointless questions. I'm sorry. I don't like dredging up these painful memories for everyone. Can you not just stay away now? Leave you alone and didn't come back here, eh? How'd you continue about that, laddie? There's not many folk even here in the prison who have heard of those papers. Well...
I'm afraid our sources must remain confidential, sir.
We've been led to believe the papers are actually a last will and testament. Is that right? The professors, or rather, Genshin Asogi's. Aye, that's right. You will inform, Jimmy. But then, after the convict's execution, it mysteriously vanished from his cell, didn't it? Others know. You're for half cocked there. I think you didn't quite get your facts straight. It was there in the cell, exactly where it should have been. Oh. Let me just have a wee hook around in here. I'm sure I can find it. Here you are. See? Last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. Written with a calligraphy brush. Of course, I cannot read a word of those Japanese squiggles. But I mind it says he leaves all his worthy possessions to his son back in his homeland.
Yes, that's correct. That's the gist of it.
So these are the Asogi papers? Why, of course they are. Papers written by Asogi. No doubt about it. There's no mystery here, laddie. Don't you look. After all the skirmish of this place of an execution, he sent the man's possessions back to his clan in Japan. And that was the end of it.
I think we ought to make a record of this, Mr. Naruhodo. Just in case.
One thing before you go on your way, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Those papers are not to do with Gregson's death. I preferred if he make no mention of them outside this office. Or rather, I wouldn't just prefer it. Consider it an order from the highest levels of full government. I understand. I sent staring at my court record, I'm gonna mention them anyway. I guess Cosmo might have any final clues concerning this. And the move. I guess we're going to the office. Well, there's Kazuma. No arguments, Prosecutor Asogi. You will continue with the trial exactly as I instructed. Is that clear? Perfectly.
It's Kazuma-sama.
Defying Lord Strongheart by the sound of it. Never did know when to back down. No way, no, Asogi. Oh lord. Kazuma. Yes. What are you doing here? Oh, well, I was just hoping to ask you a few questions, if you wouldn't mind. I want Advance's trial concluded today. But Prosecutor Asogi's unwelcome inquiries are going to make it longer than necessary. Unwelcome inquiries? As a result, I'm losing even more precious time. Currently 2 hours, 55 minutes and 41 seconds. 42, 43.
Yeah, you must resolve everything before 3 hours have passed, Mr. Naruhodo.
And in miraculous, not even 5 minutes? Does Prosecutor Asogi believe that Lord Ventix is the Reaper? I wouldn't know. It was 10 years ago, in that fateful closed trial, that Lord Ventix made a name for himself among the judiciary. But the next trial he fought, he lost. It meant the ringleader of a criminal organization was acquitted, thanks to all the jurors being under duress. But that's awful. The man's freedom was short-lived. It lasted just 3 days.
Yes, let me see. He died in a rock slide at his place of work, I believe.
What are the odds? Correct. That was the inauguration of the Reaper of the Bailey. And people believe Lord Van Zeeks was responsible? He was brought to trial himself, but it was shown to have been an accident. Nevertheless, the mysterious deaths continued. In total, 16 persons perished in unusual circumstances, ostensibly at the hands of the Reaper. With a long run of coincidences.
Well, the Reaper's sure that any may will be revealed by this trial.
And the impact that revelation would have on the British public cannot be understated. Is that why it's a closed trial? Precisely. This country hasn't seen a closed trial for 10 years. So the last one was the professor's, the trial of Genshin Asogi. Correct. Actually, we heard that originally you were going to prosecute that trial yourself, Lord Strongheart. Van Zeeks entreated me to relinquish the prosecution to him, that he might avenge his brother's death. And here we are, 10 years later. With the son of the man Van Zeeks had condemned now looking to avenge his father's death in the same way. However, it would seem that the new young prosecutor is harboring some ulterior motive as well. Cosmotis? I like my organization to run smoothly, in the exact manner that I prescribe. As with the giant clock in here, I won't tolerate a single cog being out of step with the others. If the young man refuses to mesh with the other parts of my great machine, I will be forced to take steps. Well, what do you mean? Not something with which you need to concern yourself. In any case, all your questions will be answered tomorrow. Now, I shall have to ask you to excuse me. As of this moment, I've been delayed from attending my next meeting by precisely 3 hours.
Oh, my, that is a long time.
And I hold you entirely responsible. I wonder if you might agree to us talking with Prosecutor Asogi. Discussions between the defense and the prosecution outside the courtroom are generally frowned upon. However, I will make an exception in this case. Now go. You can find him in his office. Oh, thank you.
Let's go to see him at once, Mr. Naruhodo.
He took over the office.
Oh, they made a little diorama of the room. Kazuma-sama desu. doing so well for himself. It's his habit to sit stays aside whenever he's working.
Kazuma. I thought it wouldn't be long before you paid me a visit, Ryunosuke. I was right about what I said, wasn't I? Sorry? That you have all the makings of a great defense lawyer. Nani? Oh, like, always believed that you'd fulfill your dream of advocating in the British courts.
So you stand in a foreign courtroom, so gallantly realizing your dream, Kazuma-sama. I'm truly happy for you.
And I am truly thankful to you, Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. And that suit is really form-fitting. Ryunosuke. I always thought it would be fun for you and I to shake up the British legal system a little together. This isn't quite how I envisaged it, but I suppose it's just another twist of fate. I've learned a lot of things during my time in London. About how Susato-san's father was himself a visiting student here once, along with Judge Jigoku. And about what happened with your father. Then you have no difficulty understanding why I had no choice, why I had to find a way to get to Britain as a visiting student myself. I want to hear it from you, Kazuma. As you wish, Ryunosuke Naruto. It's getting on for a year now, since what happened on the SS Boria. I thought I lost my best friend forever. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I awoke, I was lying on a bed. It was a narrow little room. There was a posy of flowers by the pillow. It took me a little while to realize that I was in the cabin of a ship. I slipped out of the room and headed up onto the deck. Were you already suffering from amnesia at that point? Yes. I didn't know what had happened or where I was. There's just this voice in my head. You have something you have to do. Something no one else can know about. Go to Great Britain. Your tasks await you there. It was a calling I couldn't ignore. It compelled me relentlessly. Out on deck, I saw that I was on a huge steamship, and we were docked in a large port.
It must have been Hong Kong.
Yes, it must have been. Presumably just before they were due to carry your body off the ship. I had no idea of the situation, but I did have the feeling that this was in some way my last chance. So I concealed myself among the disembarking passengers and went ashore. Then I disappeared into the crowded streets of that foreign port city. I could plan my onward journey to Great Britain. How did you manage that? Just under a year ago, with all my past memories lost to me, I was left behind in Hong Kong. Everything was foreign to me. The sights, the sounds, the smells. My head reeled. I was truly at a loss. I realized now that I had escaped as a dead man, with nothing but the clothes on my back. No money, of course.
Oh, how terrifying for you.
Luckily though, I had 2 feathers in my cap. One being your knowledge of English, I suppose? That's right. And on the back of that, I was able to pick up some work as a deckhand on a cargo ship. Eventually, after calling at countless ports, I finally arrived at Dover. That must have been some 3 months ago now. The formidable tenacity of purpose showing itself again. Of course, I had no idea why I'd moved heaven and earth to get here at that point. So, how did you end up becoming Lord Venzi's apprentice then? That can only be called an extraordinary stroke of luck, really. You see, I was stopped at the border because I had no papers. It took me straight to Scotland Yard. And by sheer coincidence, Lord Strongheart was there to attend the meeting. That's when the second feather in my cap came into play.
Would that have been your knowledge of the law?
Yes, exactly. Lord Strongheart was curious about an Easterner with intimate knowledge of British law. He took me back with him to the Supreme Court and assigned me to the prosecutor's office. And then, 9 days ago, he finally got your memory back after the trial involving Trevor. Yes, I did. Ever since I first met you at Yume, you talked about your dream. Mark my words, Ryunosuke. I'll be chosen as a visiting student and make my way to Great Britain someday. Did you know the entire time about what happened to your father here? "16 years ago. Aww. When my father left on that exciting trip to Great Britain, I was just a boy. We took a photograph together the day before his departure. It's my last memory of him. What I remember most about my father is his unswerving sense of justice. Six years after he left, a gentleman called at our family home. He told me that Genshin, my father, had been taken ill in England and passed away. It was Professor Miko's hope. Your father, Susato-san.
Oh my.
Ever since then, the professor was very good to me. He even helped to fund my university education at Yume. I'll be forever in his debt. But nevertheless, I just couldn't bring myself to believe what he told me.
Oh.
Then one day, a letter arrived at our house from Britain. There was no indication of the sender, so I opened it assuming it was from an old acquaintance of my father. What I read in that letter changed my entire life. What did it say? It said that my father had been a mass murderer, and the writer cursed his Sogi name.
Oh no.
As a result of that letter, I found out what had been hidden from me all those years. Presumably the letter was sent from a relative of one of the victims. If whoever it was had been a member of the justiciary, he could have been present at the closed trial. The letter revealed that my father had been sentenced to death, executed for being a killer. I'm so sorry you had to find out that way. I imagine the British government did its very best to silence whoever sent that letter. For someone who knew the truth and couldn't bear the resentment was always going to be a problem.
But still, it could have been written by anyone. Why would you believe such a thing?
There was a newspaper cutting included with the letter. It was the first I'd ever heard of the professor, and his terrible killing spree.
Oh, what did my father have to say about the letter?
I couldn't bring myself to show it to him. What? Why not? Because he deliberately concealed the truth from me by telling me my father was taken by a fatal illness. That couldn't have been easy for him, and he had done it out of consideration for my feelings. So instead, I showed the letter to Judge Kyoku. To the other visiting student. He faltered for the briefest of moments, but then he just laughed the letter off. But in that moment, I saw it on his face. He was undeniably shocked, shaken momentarily, before recovering his poise. A year later, my bereaved mother succumbed to the strain of grief, and she too passed away. That's when I made up my mind that one day, without fail, I would cross the seas to Britain and seek the truth for myself. The truth about my father, Genshin Asobi. And I wouldn't let anyone stand in my way.
Oh, Kazuma-sama.
What we learned today in court turned things completely on their head. It was an impressive piece of lore, Ryunosuke Naruto. Fences isn't the Reaper, you know. I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that Inspector Gregson himself, the victim, was... It's clear that the Inspector was behind the Reaper's activity all along. But... the real question is, who's been giving orders to the Inspector? Yes, Brock Van Zieks is the real Reaper. And I know that 10 years ago, it was him. Who decided my father must be a mass murderer and sent him to his grave.
No! He's really saying that justice was done as the law dictates. He's not to blame.
Ultimately, it's people who condemn people. The law is just a tool that they use to do it. Kazuma. And when a man condemns another, he must take responsibility for his actions. Of course he must. But I know for certain that my father would never have taken another man's life. Kazuma. On the contrary, my father's life was taken by the Reaper. Now you're definitely very convinced. You have a model for the wig. That's an interesting hobby, making crime scene dioramas. Dang, Kazuma. Is there anything else to talk about? Should I present these to him? We technically should already know about these. Yeah, yeah. Okay, never mind. I guess we'll move on then. Or not. Maybe. Talk lava. Okay. Okay. Find something in the room to talk about? Spill the tea on the antiques, Cosmo. I should know so much stuff. How does Banzeeks even have time to prosecute? I think we've examined everything in the office. That's... Bats aren't bird, Cosmo. Okay. Just making sure you know. Should you at least have a hawk, Renosuke. turn off my cam for a bit. Nope, I checked that already. Okay, what am I supposed to say? Or present? The Reaper. Alas, I had to take my revenge. Kazuma. Lord Fenzeeks isn't responsible for your father's death, and he's not the Reaper. He's the defendant and deserving of a fair trial. You mean like the one my father had? It's a closed trial now too. The conditions are exactly as they were 10 years ago. And even if it ruffles some feathers, I have a plan to show the man for what he really is. This came up in the trial, didn't it? That's something a little dubious, I mean. The fact that no time of death was recorded on Inspector Gregson's autopsy report. Yes, there were some unexpected turns in the courtroom earlier. The suggestion you came up with certainly took everyone by surprise. The idea that the victim died the previous day at some other location is quite something. Well, considering when the pocket watch had stopped and the scorch marks on the candle, it's certainly a distinct possibility. The evidence and the scene both point to it. To be honest, it bothered me too. So I paid a visit to the autopsy room earlier. The coroner responsible wasn't there, but I got a name. It's Dr. Gory.
If it wouldn't trouble you, Kazuma-sama, we'd very much like to speak with the coroner too.
Of course. The last thing I want was for anything to be brushed under the carpet. Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory is behind Logate Cemetery. Logate by Barclay Prison, you mean? Ah, you know it, do you? The prison where my father was incarcerated and robbed of his life.
Kazuma-sama.
Well, thank you. We'll pay a visit to the laboratory later today. Ryunosuke, I want to thank you. For this. You safeguarded the soul of the Asogi clan. Well, it is a famous source that's been in your family for generations. My only slight regret is that I never got a chance to draw before I returned it to you. Karma is said to have been forged by a master swordsmith during the Sengoku Warring States period. I come from a long lineage of warriors, many of whom were expert swordsmen. Well then, you're a chip off the old block, I'd say. This blade, Karma, is a symbol of the Asogi clan's honor and might. Apparently, one of my father's apprentices even took the blade's name for a surname. Really? Karma. It does sound formidable, that's for sure. 16 years ago, when my father was a visiting student here in London, he had this sword forever at his side. Which is why it means so much to me that I have it by my side again now too. And that was all thanks to you. It was an honor. Now, I have preparations to make for tomorrow. Perhaps I said a little too much. Kazuma, you've changed. No, Ryunosuke. I haven't changed at all. It's you who's changed. I can completely understand your resentment of Lord Van Zeek's given what happened. But the fact is, those events and this case are, well, unrelated. Is that what you want to say? How can you be so sure? What do you mean? Never mind. That man is the Reaper, and it's for that reason that the inspector was killed. I'm going to prove as much in court tomorrow, by whatever means necessary. I can't let you do that, Kazuma. I know you do what you have to as a lawyer, but I'm sure I don't need to tell you that I won't be taking any prisoners in the courtroom. I'll expect nothing less. Until tomorrow, in the Old Bailey. Until tomorrow. There are suddenly more toys in here than last time. This place really is creepy, isn't it?
Well, being a dead room is probably full of the spirits of the dissected. But actually, there's a rather pleasing scent of roses in the air. Well, being a dead room. The corner probably needs a bold scent like that to match the odor of death.
Iris? Do you think we could change the subject?
What was that?
About to get shanked. Dr. Gory? What? First of all, how old are you? How old was Dr. Scythe? Here, if I wouldn't be in here. What? That noise before?
I was sharpening my tools. I'd be dead meat if I didn't keep a perfectly keen edge on them.
Right.
I'm following the collagen fibers in the dermis, an expertly sharpened scalpel. Cuts like cheese. Would you like a demonstration? Oh yes please, I'd love to see. Then, I think you'll do nicely.
Huh? No! No, I wouldn't do nicely at all. I mean, Maybe some other time. I'm pretty sure that was thing those knives together are just gonna dull them. We have actually met before. I'm a lawyer, if you remember.
You're not dead yet.
What?
So Mama said I wasn't to cut you open. She's so strict about things like that.
Well, good.
Oh dear. Looks like she's not interested in talking to us. For the time being, anyway.
Until we die. Sorry, but I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon. Dr. Gory, we actually came here to ask you about this.
It was very good.
Good. Sorry?
His skin didn't sag was not my blade once, and very little mess. His joints dislocated easily, and this muscle tissue was a pleasure to work with.
We can skip those details. But there's one thing about the reports that's caught my attention. You don't seem to have recorded the time of death.
That's not my fault.
Oh,
Then please, tell us what happened.
so why doesn't this autopsy report include the victim's time of death then? It's really the most crucial detail.
I was told not to write it.
What? By whom?
Nell Strongheart, the Lord Chief Justice. He came here.
Lord Strongheart came?
He said that from the witness statements about the gunshot and the other evidence, it was obvious. The man clearly died at 5 PM on the 1st of November, when the gunshot was heard. But that's not the time of death he wrote in the report. He didn't write anything. Was there some reason you didn't include it?
Dr. Gory, if you're hiding something under Lord Strongheart's instructions, then sooner or later, you're going to go through the same way as your mother.
Give it here then. There.
You've written...
What she's written? Tell us!
Indeterminate.
What?
Oh, was his body frozen somewhere or something? What do you mean by that? Why was the time of death indeterminate?
When the specimen was brought in, it was still fresh. So the time of death could have easily coincided with when the gunshot was heard. But there's one small discrepancy.
What discrepancy?
There's some fried fish in the pocket of the specimen's overcoat. And that fish had started to rot.
What?
If the victim liked fried fish, he presumably liked to eat it before it went off.
Well, yes. What are you really trying to say?
It's also that someone tried to manipulate the apparent time of death.
Manipulate it? Is that even possible to do?
Theoretically, if you were to chill the body in ice, you could delay the onset of putrefaction.
And if the overcoat wasn't on the body at the time, then only the fish will have started to rot.
With today's science, it's not yet possible to determine if the body was chilled or not. But surely, a chilled corpse like that would require an enormous electrical refrigerator. I would imagine many households in London are equipped with such a device. No, definitely not. And maybe in a factory, or some other special places. I don't recall seeing any factories or such like on Fresno Street, though. I wonder if the inspector's body had been chilled somehow. What might the actual time of death have been? I couldn't say for sure. But at the most, it might have been a day earlier.
No.
In other words, you corroborate your previous deduction, Mr. Naruhodo. Inspector Gregson was killed a day before his body was discovered, at a different location.
Did you inform Lord Strongheart of this possibility?
He simply said that there are no electrical refrigerators of that size in the vicinity.
What if they fumbled enough like they found him on the scene? Oh yes, one other thing. It's something the governor of Barclay Prison told us. He said that your mother, Dr. Scythe, was responsible for confirming the death of the professor after his execution.
That professor.
Apparently, you always enjoyed listening to your mother's stories about her work, so we were wondering if you might know something about what had happened 10 years ago.
That's not all Mama did.
Sorry?
My Mama carried out the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks as well.
What? Really?
The idea of carrying out an autopsy on the murder of the aristocracy was completely unthinkable back then. But the detective in charge of the investigation insisted and it was miraculously authorized. That detective being Inspector Gregson, of course. That autopsy provided the vital clue needed to arrest the killer. My Mama was there for the historic event. You know, that amazing autopsy happened right here in this very room. The professor and Clint Van Zeeks. They both spent their final moments before their burial on that dissection table there. But this lab, Mama's lab, was instrumental in some of the country's most important events.
I wonder if you tell us more about exactly what happened back then, Dr. Gory.
The professor's execution was Mama's first big case. He had to be in attendance at Barclay Prison's execution chamber. And signed a certificate to confirm the convict's death. Mama is the best coroner in the world, you know. I was so proud of her.
But the execution didn't actually take place.
Oh, and worse still, Mama actually helped with the jailbreak. I didn't want to know. Oh dear. You found out recently, you mean? I believed in her, in Mama, but now I wonder if I'm starting down the same path as her.
You mean because you omitted the time of death on this autopsy report? But that's because Lord Strongheart forbade you from concluding it.
Just like Mama. I'm sure she was coerced by somebody too.
Yes, that's my feeling as well.
There's no doubt that there are powerful forces at play 10 years ago. The execution couldn't have been staged without a lot of people at the prison knowing about it. Obviously, the prison governor must have been in on it as well. The big man with the little handcuffs? According to what he told us, he was tricked by the chief warder. He said he knew nothing about it.
Of course he said that. I'd say the same thing. You mentioned the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks. It was at a time when carrying the autopsies of murder victims was very unusual. It's still not a practice that is observed in our country, even now. It turned out that he was the professor's final victim, and when the autopsy was performed, Mama was present, although only as the secondary assistant. The person leading the procedure was called Dr. John H. Wilson.
That's right, my daddy!
And there was one other person present, the primary assistant. He was a visiting student from the Far East. Wait, a visiting student? It must have been my father, Eugen Mikotova. But the outcome of that historic autopsy was the discovery of a vital piece of evidence that led to the capture of the professor. Do you happen to know anything about that piece of evidence? Can you tell us any more? Would you like to see the records for yourself? Would that be alright? What's the point of keeping records if people can't look at them? They're filed under V at the back of those cupboards. The other records from that last decade. Thank you. That's strange. What, Mr. Naruto? They aren't here. There's nothing other Van Zeeks. There must be. Perhaps somebody took them away? No. No one's allowed to take documents related to the professor case out of this room. But you're right. They're gone. Well, when was the last time somebody looked at them? You remember? It was... Oh, yes, I remember now. It was 2 years ago. A consulting detective came one day saying that he'd like to see the records. No, you don't mean... Sherlock Sholmes was his name. Do you think he stole the records? Oh, no, surely not. Iris, that can't be right, can it? Iris?
Bruno? I hope you don't mind, but
What is it, Iris?
I just remembered something very important I have to do. I'm going to leave you now.
Oh, this is very sudden, Iris. Well, we'll come with you then.
Oh no, there's no need. You and Rima can take your time here. Bye for now then. Good luck!
Wait a minute, little girl.
Me?
I remember now. You've been here before, haven't you? Have you, Iris? Yes, 2 years ago, when that detective came. You were with him, weren't you? You were a living specimen then, too.
Was I? I really don't remember. Anyway, sorry. My mustache.
Wait, Iris?
I'm gonna report for you when we get home.
Well, in that case, we won't keep you any longer either.
It's been quite a while since I've had any visitors. It's really fun. But next time you come, I prefer it if you're ready for dissection.
I can't make any promises, sorry. Where should we go? Yes, don't be rude. Guess first of all, what's this case for? The trunk wasn't here before, was it?
Oh, it appears to be made of metal. It must be very heavy. I wonder whom it belongs. There are some initials on the outside, look. T.G.
That's not clever. Let's ask one of the policemen if they know how it came to be here.
Boy, what do you think you're doing? It's my trunk, that is. Hands off.
Yeah. Where were you hiding?
I don't know, leave something unattended for a few seconds and every Tom, Dick and Harry's got his greedy eyes on it.
Just a wild guess, Gina, but...
What? Spit out, Odo.
Is it fair to say that you've only owned that trunk since this morning's trial?
What? What are you trying to say? Come on, this trunk goes with me everywhere. Always has. Where have you been the last year?
Maybe the color does suit you, but those aren't your initials.
You sit here and talking at the yard now. They should be ashamed of themselves. Just saying, there was the boss who killed all them pledges.
You mean the whole Reaper thing?
Yeah. Apparently the boss was investigating stuff that no one else at the yard knew nothing about. What to do with all them criminals who are off scot-free?
Yes, the ones prosecuted by Lord Antiques who used bribery and corruption to evade conviction.
But an always see us that bloomin' Reaper giving their orders, doing it?
But why would people be suspecting that Inspector Gregson of being involved in the killings?
There's a notebook hidden in his office.
Oh no.
They have details about all the crimes that have been pegged as Reaper's work.
What?
Did you see it, Gina? Did you see that notebook? Don't flame and let me, because I'm just an apprentice apparently. It was me who found it, and he was my boss. That's right. I was pretty miffed about it, so... It's easy to pick up what's said anyway. Oh.
That's Argina. So you managed to see what was written in Gregson's secret notebook anyway, did you?
Oh, I see it. Is my right to read what he wrote? And what had he written, Gina? Dates, times, places, names, and all a long list of them. All the details about the blood is supposed to have been done in by the Reaper. But there could be an explanation for that. Perhaps there was a record of the inspector's investigations into the Reaper's activities. Exactly! That's what I said! That's the first thing you'd think, right? As it happens, it was full of names I recognize anyway.
Well, the Reaper's targets were almost exclusively known leaders of London's criminal underworld.
Oh yeah, but there was one name right at the end that was a bit odd.
At the end of the list, you mean?
I'm pretty sure the date against it was 31st of October. Oh, the day before the inspector was found dead.
So, what's the odd name?
It wasn't like a name I've ever seen before. It was something like, No, it's no good. I can't remember it. I don't think it was an English name, put it that way. Oh dear. What a pity. There was something else too. I don't know if it matters, but the same name kept coming up over and over. Didn't. It was. Don't suppose it means anything, but...
Did you say Shin?
Yeah? What? Does it mean something?
We haven't seen you for a little while, have we, Gina?
Well, of course not. I've been busy, ain't I? Investigating in that. But I was the hour trying to trace the boss's movements the day before it happened.
The day before? That would be the undercover investigation into the Red-Headed League, then.
Well, the boss didn't go, did he? He found some cool what was pretending to be in Dinjo, though. Well, anyway, you're the only one turning stuff up. I'll try my own way to get results. And me and my partner here get together, there's nothing we can't track down.
Aww.
Oh, little Toby. He's such a faithful friend.
So, have you tracked anything down then?
What do you think, eh? Of course we have. Can't tell you though. It's his business, isn't it? Anyway, the point is, if you lot ever need any help, you know who to turn to, right? Me and Nell down here.
Right. Gina, about your hellhound there.
Chief Inspector Toby, you mean? It's probably the force he is. In Japanese, police talk means something quite different, and not altogether nice to those involved in crime. But here in Britain, it's a wonderful compliment, it seems. For a canine, at least.
It should be. After all, in the great exhibition case the other day, it was Toby here who managed to locate Driver's workshop.
It's time for another demonstration of what a super dog can do, eh?
Hmm. We don't know who this gun actually belongs to. Can we use this?
Take that!
Well, Chief Inspector Toby, if you wouldn't mind having a stiffer with this.
The Chief Inspector said wolf to that, Odo.
Yes, I heard.
I think perhaps that particular item didn't excite him very much. I got nothing else.
I'll have a think. Thought we were onto something. Trace his movements. His pocket watch?
Take that!
I think he's cute little face. He might be a little too keen, don't you think? Look where he's gone to.
Oh, my, the trunk clearly still has a very strong scent.
Of Inspector Gregson. In other words, it must have belonged to him.
Alright, it's a fair cop, I suppose.
And he got away with it too.
You always talk so proudly of Chief Inspector Toby's nose and what it can achieve. Did it not cross your mind that he might identify something that was right next to us? Yeah, that was a bit of a bloomer, wasn't it?
That's enough now then, Gina.
Eh?
I think it's time you told us the truth about that trunk.
It weren't like that, it just weren't.
What are you talking about?
I know what's going through that head of yours, but it ain't what happened.
Alright then. What did happen?
Well, like I said before, we were trying to trace the boss's movements. So Toby I would with the boss's overcoat. And as soon as I done that, he went off like a shot. Straight to that sandwich.
To a sandwich? Not to a bag of chips?
No, Odo. I think Gina means the witness. Yeah, he had it hidden between them wooden boards of his. The boss's trunk.
You mean, when I heard this sound like a gunshot and all piled in here?
Exactly. He nabbed it from the scene.
Goodness.
Me and the Chief Inspector get that sound a good grilling. And you know what he said?
I thought they might fetch a good price and the job wouldn't be needing it anymore, so...
But that's all I did. Nothing more. Nothing less. Well, yeah, I may need the cheek of it, eh? Seen the dead boss's stuff to flog.
Though Venus wasn't the only one to meddle with the scene of the crime, and...
How could they? So anyway, that's how it happened. It's a pretty decent trunk, so I figured I might as well make use of it. There's something wrong with that, eh? Well,
maybe you and Mr. Sandwich should try to find the answer to that question together.
I think that trunk should be turned over to the police, don't you? What are you on about? I am the police!
Gina, if you wouldn't mind, could we maybe examine it?
Yeah, alright then. Do what you want with it. Thank you. You should make a detailed record of our examination of evidence.
Toby? What's the matter with Toby? Why is he acting so aggressively toward me all of a sudden?
Sir, hold on, be careful. It must be the trunk. Toby, boy, what are you doing? You gotta lick his face off. Mr. Naruto! Mr. Naruto! Get it quickly, yellow carriage.
Did I die?
Oh, Mr. Naruto, are you alright?
Mrs. Sato. Conscious again at last. A blessed relief, my dear fellow. After all, she dropped dead after a moderate licking by a small terrier. Most unseemly.
What is or isn't seeing is irrelevant here, Mr. Sholmes. I'm so glad there's no lasting damage. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, thank you. Did you bring me back here? Sadly, we had no ice, so that's a compress of sugar water. Sugar water?
Don't worry, Mr. Naruto. It's first aid treatment that my father taught me.
Oh, thank you. So, let us take the tea when you're feeling up to it. But of course, no sugar in the patient's cup. The both of my head is probably sweetly enough, don't you worry.
Whenever you feel ready, then.
No. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Sholmes. My dear fellow, think nothing of it. I must say I was quite startled when I heard that you'd been attacked by a dog. For a moment I feared that infamous murder of so many had come back from the dead. You mean the professor? Fortunately, I see your prize throw is unscathed. That stiff turned-up collar, he has obviously afforded some luck of protection. All I remember is the dog licking my face over and over again. Well, if you wish to avoid such troubles in the future, a little mustard spread on the cheeks should do the trick. I should think that would balance the sweetness of your bandage rather splendidly. Thanks.
Are you alright, Mr. Naruto? It's rather unusual to find ourselves here in the middle of our investigations.
It's just occurred to me that I might have forgotten something when we left this morning.
Please don't worry. As long as you continue to investigate thoroughly, you won't go far wrong.
Oh, yes, of course. Let's get back to work as soon as possible. What the heck? Okay, I gotta deal with this first. What on earth is going on here? Am I having a bad dream? It's an old German folk song. Rather a fine rendition, I think. That's the least of my concerns. Iris? Iris, what's the matter? Who's that spelling? I mean, that gentleman over there. Iris? Excuse me, sir. I do apologize for troubling you whilst you're singing so merrily, but would you be kind enough to explain the situation? Well, that worked. A grinning gentleman and a mute young girl. I've had a tantalizing juxtaposition. And one that appears to have incited the gods of deduction within me to find their voices too.
Mr. Sholmes, do you mean?
The strains of reasoning within me are playing now as a delightful duet. One melody sings of a reunion full of nostalgia, whilst the other is a morose theme about the great secret you're trying so desperately to conceal. Iris.
So as usual, Divinity seemed to the very heart of the matter.
And by the time my own brief performance is over, I feel sure this gentleman's song will reach its finale. So then, to music then, for all this sweetness and delicacy and harmony. I do enjoy Sherlock Holmes' latest logic and reasoning spectacular. You could just take the mask off him, he's fine. First we consider the gentleman's nationality. He's a German with no grasp of the English language. As evidenced by the Germanic song he sings and his apparent inability to understand when asked to desist. So, why is the man here at all in such apparently high spirits? The answer, of course, Iris, is clearly known to you. You'd only follow the gaze of those bright young eyes to unravel that particular part of this mystery. The reason for the man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by the herbal tea. You obviously offered our German guest a cup of your latest herbal blend. The tea's delectable flavor has made the man's spirits soar. I was in this joyful ditty tumbling incessantly from his lips. I eagerly await sampling the flavor myself, that I may join the fellow in this state of elation. Now to the next question. Who exactly is this gentleman revealing himself so thoroughly at the SETI? This happened a number of years ago now. A certain gentleman of German origin engaged my services in solving a particularly delicate case. He required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance that he might have proved problematic. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived at my office in a mask. The gentleman's name was Wilhelm Gottschalk Siegmund von Ormstein, the King of Germany. If my memory serves, the mask worn by this gentleman is identical. Yes, there can be no question. That man belongs to the King of Germany. No, Sholmes. It would appear that His Majesty remembers the fine service I afforded him, and has decided to show his face again, mask and all, in order to express his gratitude. A well-mannered monarch indeed. Wouldn't you agree, my dear fellow? Iris, how do you tolerate this? So the identity of this masked visitor is in fact my former client, the King of Germany. Indeed. His son is currently in London as well, enjoying the wonders of the Great Exhibition. And that's just the first topic. We'll see this is one remaining imponderable. Yes, you, young Iris. But your apparently inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your meekness is concealed inside that knapsack. If I found note, I believe. I must say, as your compatriot, I'm deeply saddened. It would appear that you've allowed yourself to be bribed into silence by His Royal Highness, earning yourself some spending money in exchange for keeping quiet about the King's secret. And now the final piece of the puzzle. What's the secret you tried to hide with your science, Iris? Ah yes, you'd only follow that brief involuntary twist of your eyes to find the answer. You're attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. My favorite coffee cup, in fact. Or should I say, the handle of my favorite coffee cup. It appears that His High Spirit Highness broke it in the midst of his hijinks. Which leads us to the sad truth. My favorite coffee cup has been broken by the King of Germany, and Iris, you tried to conceal it from me. I shall have a bill sent via governmental channels to the German royal family for its replacement. Films. Let's conclude Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this painful puzzle. With your silence as well, the fellow's jovial warbling rather rings in the ears, does it not?
Mr. Sholmes, I must say something does rather trouble me.
Pray, Mrs. Sato, do tell.
His Royal Highness doesn't appear to have moved the muscles since he arrived.
Huh. And you haven't said a word either, Iris. If Mr. Sholmes has it alright, you might as well own up to it now. Everything isn't entirely about substance, I must admit. And one other thing, Mr. Sholmes. Yet another grievance, Mr. Naruhodo? Surely not. Well, I actually read the story of that case recently. The one you were just describing. And according to that at least, it wasn't the King of Germany, it was the King of Bohemia. Goodness, was it?
Yes, that's quite true. Master Gotts, the prince, testified to that in court. In his words, I've come to see the great exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia.
I would ask you to keep that minor error to yourselves. It could easily become quite a scandal.
I believe, Mr. Naruhodo, that's our turn now to make some corrections to a number of minor errors that may have slipped in.
Yes, even Mr. Sholmes is willing to admit he might be slightly wide of the mark this time. But one truth is incontrovertible. Our favorite coffee cup is no more. So, shall we embark again? On a joint presentation of Herlock Sholmes' logic and reasoning spectacular. So what, is some mix of birds that gives you the urge to sing?
Goodness, I should like to try some.
And I like to hear you singing, but this man... Just how long does he intend to keep up with that tune, do you suppose?
As I said, he's been stock still the entire time. And if you look closely, his lips aren't moving either.
Huh.
So I'm not sure what's actually responsible for the spirited singing. I suspect the answer lies ahead of Iris's gaze.
Wait, this is...
It's a gramophone. Still rarely seen in our own country. Some certainly appears to be coming from the horn.
The machine's singing? That can't be right. Science and technology are changing the world rapidly.
Mr. Naruhodo, what's right is changing too.
It's too much for my brain.
Well, at least we found our answer.
Take that!
The reason for the man's mildly irritating wobbling is revealed by the gramophone. Indeed, for no well-bred gentleman would break into an obscure folk song when making a social call. In other words, this gentleman isn't singing at all. In fact, it would appear that the fellow is unconscious. Huh, the music seems to have stopped now. I see, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Why would I have purchased a recording of that gibberish? How should I know? Well, never mind. On with the deduction. Who exactly is this gentleman debating himself so thoroughly at the SETI? You remember that long name, but not where it came from.
Take that!
Yes, there can be no question. That house belongs to Kazuma Asogi. In other words, my memory is sublimely unreliable. Only you could try to make that sound positive. Kazuma's mask has been languishing on this metal chest for several days. Though that doesn't explain why the gentleman is wearing it now. But it is now a simple matter to determine our guest's true identity. After all, the gentleman is unconscious. We only excuse ourselves in advance. Gently lift the mask and peer beneath it. I don't believe it.
There.
I very pleased with Sato, you must be...
No, I think not, Mr. Sholmes.
Then it will appear our logic and reasoning has once again revealed the truth. This mysterious visitor.
It's my unconscious father, Yushin Bigotoba.
Logic and reasoning? Or just looking and saying? What is that actually? No?
Take that!
The chest is open. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that metal chest. An excellent observation. Upon closer inspection, there is something different about the chest's appearance. It's kept locked at all times, yet now, the catch is open. Evidently, this has something to do with your refusal to speak, Iris. It's a simple enough matter to incite you to speak, I'm sure. I may need to open this chest. Chest. Here we go.
No! Really don't!
This just shows. This just shows.
Really?
He's dead. I'm screen capping this. For posterity.
Never. Oh, really? I told you not to open it.
So you found your voice now, Iris. In other words, what just happened clearly reveals the truth here. Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is...
It's somewhat different to the usual dance of deduction you perform, Mr. Sholmes, isn't it?
Well, he's left me alone on the ballroom floor, so I'm going to have to dance this next part solo. And anyway, I need to get to the bottom of this for my own peace of mind. Now then, Iris isn't usually the silent type, so...
You don't actually know the answer yet? Despite that knowing point of the finger before?
Mrs. Sato. Sometimes a man needs to point his finger first and think later.
Oh, well, if you say so. I think you better examine Iris more closely and try to rescue the situation then.
What's this key? Was she hiding a key in her mouth?
Take that!
Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is that key behind your back. And Mr. Sholmes was thrown into the air before. Just before you called out to try to stop him, you slipped something out of your mouth. That something is the key now in your hands. No doubt the key to the chest.
You're so clever, Bruno.
So now it becomes clear. Thanks to Mr. Sholmes' graphic demonstration, we can well imagine what happened here.
But
Professor Mikosawa also opened that metal chest only to be punched into the air. And then sprawled on the city.
wait, that doesn't explain all the facts. What about the stylish scarf and a cup of tea, and above all, why would he be wearing Kazuma-sama's mask?
Well, for those curious details, I can think of only one explanation. Really, an unbelievable miracle took place in this room. Isn't that right, Iris? Consider how the room was arranged before this whole painful experience took place. And Professor Mikoto opened the chest, completely unaware of what awaited him inside. The mask was flung into the air just as he was, only to land neatly up on his face when it fell back down. And the teacup's journey through the air ended when it caught on the unconscious professor's finger.
You mean to say that the stylish scarf
It's actually just a tablecloth. This is the great detective's office, after all, a place of miraculous deductions. Would you expect anything less?
Yes, you're right. It happened exactly as you said. Brilliant, Bruno.
This concludes Ryunosuke Naruhodo's great deduction of this punchy puzzle.
So then, why don't I make a fresh pot of tea for us all?
Objection!
An admirable performance, Mr. Naruhodo. But in the final act of the show there, you rather miss everything of importance. Mr. Sholmes, you cast your mind back to my earlier deduction. Iris, where you're hiding a great secret. Yes? So I put it to you again. You're attempting to abscond with that coffee cup.
I'm really just ashamed about Mr. Sholmes' cup.
It must have been smashed when Professor Mikotoa opened the chest.
Oh dear. So many things seem to have been broken here.
But now that the deduction has taken a different direction, Iris doesn't seem to be trying to hide the broken cup anymore.
In other words, the great secret is something else.
So this little thing sticking out isn't important. Oh, what's this?
Take that!
You're attempting to abscond with that case file. Iris, as you know very well, nothing escapes the attention of a great detective.
Oh no.
We visited Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory earlier today, and Dr. Gorey informed us that the autopsy report of Clint Van Zieks had gone missing. Clint Van Zieks. Yes, I do seem to recall. That's some years ago. I asked to see the report in question. You were with me, weren't you? You were with me, weren't you, Iris?
Hi.
You mean, it was you, Iris? Those papers you have there are...
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
In truth, I would like to have thought I could predicted the booby-trapped chest, but it caught me completely off guard. I was very nearly the late consulting detective for Sherlock Holmes.
I'm sorry, Hurley.
So you mean this autopsy report really is?
Yes, I took it from the lab, even though I knew it was very important. Was there something in it that troubled you, Iris? Not exactly something that troubled me. Something I've been looking for. When I saw this report, when I saw the writing in it, I knew it was Daddy's.
The writing?
Your father's writing? What do you really mean?
Iris? Forgive me for interrupting, my dear fellows. Mr. Sholmes, what is it? I feel as though the poor unconscious gentleman on the settee has been somewhat forgotten.
Father!
Perhaps we should find our guest somewhere more peaceful to rest? Mr. Naruto. Yes? Would you be so kind as to lend in your bed? We must do our very best to make him comfortable, I feel. Oh, yes, of course. I'll help you carry him up.
So will I.
No, I can manage alone, thank you. You have tea to enjoy. You wouldn't want Iris's brew to stew. I wonder.
I must use this opportunity to talk with Iris. I know what's going on.
This investigation's been going on for a while. Would you like to tell us about it, Iris? About your father?
I'm sure I told you before, didn't I? That Daddy used to be Hurley's partner.
Yes, and that notes all about the cases they solved together kept inside that little chest.
That's right. Hurley told me, you see. He said that Daddy's somewhere far away now, so we can't meet. Then, when I secretly unlocked the chest and read through the papers inside, I started to build up a picture in my head of what Daddy must be like.
Well, that's only natural.
You're just like any other girl of your age. I read that Daddy was a professor of medical science, so I studied and took my degree too.
Well, that's only natural, I suppose.
In that respect, you're not quite like any other girl of your age, though. But there was one thing that I could never find out. Daddy's name. His name wasn't anywhere on the notes he made about his work with Hurley. But then one day...
That's what happened, is it? When he saw this autopsy report, he finally managed to work it out. Is that right?
Yes. When I saw the writing on that report, I could hardly believe it. I know that handwriting, I thought to myself.
Because it was the same as the writing you've seen on your father's case notes?
Exactly. I was desperate to compare the two properly. I needed to see them side by side. I asked the doctor in the laboratory, but I was told I couldn't take the report away. And even worse, I was told that was the first and last time we'd be allowed to even look at it there.
So you decided to steal it?
When I compared the autopsy report with the case notes I had here, there's no doubt. The handwriting was exactly the same. It was Daddy's. And the signature of the coroner at the bottom of the autopsy report
read Dr. John H. Wilson.
That's how I finally found out. I learned Daddy's name at last.
I see.
Ever since then, I call myself Iris Wilson. That's also when I had the brilliant idea of writing stories all about Daddy's exciting times with Hurley. I decided there and then that I'd write the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Oh, Iris, I had no idea the stories had quite such a deep personal significance for you.
Joan? This is really all my fault.
Really?
I made a promise, you see, that until the time was right, I keep the details about your father a secret.
I know. I've been very naughty. I'll take the autopsy report back to Dr. Gorey and apologize, I promise.
Yes, we'll go together, I think.
Then let me look after it for you until we get there. I was gonna water my herbs, I think. I'll see y'all later. How? What's the meaning of this, Mr. Sholmes?
Mr. Sholmes? Oh dear me. So, you've noticed, I see.
What? That would mean...
What on earth's the matter, Mrs. Sato? You've turned as white as a sheet.
This autopsy report, Mr. Naruhodo. Done from 10 years ago. The writing isn't Dr. Wilson's at all.
Huh? What do you mean? How could you possibly know that?
Because I know this writing very well.
This writing. It's my father's! What? Professor Mikotova's? Indeed. It's true. And now you know. My dear fellows. No! I don't know anything! What on earth does all this mean, Mr. Sholmes? Please, you have to explain. So, this autopsy report was actually penned by Professor Mikotova then? But that makes no sense. It's not possible, surely. Not possible. My dear fellow. Ray, take a deep breath and think again.
Yes, you're right. In some ways. It actually makes a great deal of sense.
It does?
10 years ago is when Father returned to Japan after his extended study tour in Britain.
And prior to his return, where was Dr. Mikotova engaged? Of course. He was an assistant in Dr. Wilson's laboratory, learning about forensic science. And as an assistant, he would have aided with the dissection work, making detailed notes, which would be assembled into the full autopsy report. Once the work was complete, the head coroner would check the contents and put his signature on the document.
In other words, the only writing of Dr. Wilson's in the report would be his signature at the end.
I see. So Iris got the wrong end of the stick, you mean? They saw that and assumed the whole report had been written by Dr. John H. Wilson.
Which is very understandable, of course.
Thinking about it, most of what we know about you, Mr. Sholmes, comes from the published stories of your exploits.
Yes, The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, written by Iris.
And we really have no way of knowing what's fact and what's fiction. Most showing for you, my dear fellow, I'm sure. So what about this supposed partners of yours? Did he really exist or not? You come straight to the point, I see.
And please come straight to the answer.
I believe Iris explained in one of her installments. He was a trusted comrade, and the only person I could truly have called a friend.
And did this partner of yours truly make a record of all your cases? Are his notes really stored inside that metal chest?
Absolutely, my dear madam. Absolutely. So, where's your partner now? We rarely meet. You see, he lives on the other side of the world. But if this autopsy report and the records of all your cases were penned by the same hand, and if the autopsy report was written, though not signed, by your famous partner, then there will be only one logical conclusion. Ray, impress me. Your partner would have to be Yuji Mikotova. In other words, is Sasato's father. On my word, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? You're coming along wonderfully. You've hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. You mean to say... Allow me to introduce you. To my great friend and partner, Mikotova. Professor Mikotova!
Does this mean that you're the real Dr. Wilson?
No, my dear. I'm still my old self. Yuji Mikotova, your father.
Oh, of course.
I must say, though, how my old friend has attained worldwide celebrity as a great mystery solver is the greatest mystery of all. I still remember the first time we met. Pray remind me, when was it again, Mikotoba? 16 years ago, Sholmes. Ah yes, quite. 16 years ago. I just arrived from Japan with Seishiro and Genshin. I was in search of lodgings close to the hospital, some comfortable rooms at a reasonable price. But rents are devilishly high in that particular area. That's right. So I decided I needed someone to share lodgings and the expense. And was fortunate enough to be introduced to Sholmes, who found himself in a similar situation. I was a callow fellow back then, a mere shadow of the great detective you see before you now. I was working at the hospital's chemical laboratory at the time, indulging my curiosities for a little game. And the situation of our cohabitation led to us pursuing cases together, you see. Well, to believe, it was a mere 6 years. We had a great many adventures. But in the last year of Mikotoba's stay in Britain, the most infamous of cases presented itself. A case with which you've become rather familiar yourselves, the professor killings. After the trial, Seishiro and I were summoned back home. Nothing surprising, given the circumstances. So there you have it. And as you know, all the details recorded by my trusty chronicler remain in that metal chest.
Father.
Goodness, my dear, what a cutting look.
How's your daughter? I'm very proud to learn that you are the great detective's great partner. But nevertheless, there's another mystery that I really must ask you to explain now.
And that is?
You know very well what it is. There was a matter of Iris's father.
I should have seen this coming, I suppose.
Iris told us that all the notes about the great detective's adventures that are in that metal chest were written by her father. Isn't that correct, Mr. Sholmes?
That is indeed what I told young Iris.
But if you're Mr. Sholmes' partner father, and you wrote all those case notes, then Iris' father must be you.
Upon my word, Mrs. Ata. You're coming along wonderfully as well. You too have hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. Oh.
What you've always told me, father, is that my mother died when I was born 16 years ago. And you left me in grandmother's care whilst you embarked on your study tour of Britain. And I've always accepted that, but all this about Iris.
No, hold on a minute. It was very complicated. I mean, it's really not what you think.
Then perhaps you'd like to explain exactly what it is.
No, really, you've got it the wrong end of the stick. Show him, say something, man! That's quite enough, my fiery fellows. Mr. Sholmes? Also, I don't like to interrupt this exciting exploration of the past. Mikotoba and I have an urgent matter that requires a short excursion.
It's very late, Mr. Sholmes. Where must you go?
Why, my dear madam, Is that not obvious? My partner and I must pursue our natural enemies. So, get your Kobe Katana. The game is afoot. But Jones, I really must give Susato a full explanation, I think. Later, my dear fellow, later. Our carriage waits downstairs already. You haven't changed one iota, have you? I mean, really. I visited our home after 10 long years. And when I opened that chest in a fit of nostalgia, I quite inexplicably pass out. And as if that wasn't enough, when I eventually regained consciousness, I plunged straight into all this.
Father, please. Go on, Mr. Shelms now.
What?
I don't doubt that whatever happened, you're acting in everyone's best interest. I trust you. Completely.
Zato.
As setting the great detective and his great partner off on renewed adventures together. It's more than I could have hoped for in my wildest dreams.
Very well then. We'll speak again later. So, I believe your own work is done for today. I wish you the best of luck for tomorrow. Yes, Naruto. Good luck in battle, and in reaching a decision.
So much happened that day that I barely knew what to do with myself. It would only be later that I'd come to realize how amidst the chaos I'd unleashed were all the clues I needed to finally unearth the truth, and that all the turmoil was necessary to give me the resolve to see everything through.
I really thought we were gonna get back to the trial, but it seems we've uncovered yet another secret. I guess we'll have to find out what happens next time. I'll see you then.